What's going on, everybody? You got Eric Worrell here of rentprep.com, and I'm here with Andrew Schultz, who is an associate broker with Realty Edge. How you doing, Andrew?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. We were off last week, but we're back. I actually took off. It was my wife's birthday, so we went out and just went about town for the day on a Wednesday. It was fun.
Do anything exciting or not really?
I got my first pedicure. I thought I'd get a reaction out of you on that. Yeah.
Well, good.
I'm not ashamed. You know what? My feet feel great. So what?
And nobody cares to hear this, but I have like monster calluses on the bottom of my feet. That drives me nuts. Hang on a second, Eric. I gotta turn the brightness up on my
Jen Kuhn's like,
phone
thanks
here a little
sharing
bit.
That information there.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, you know what? Nobody wants to hear about my pedicure, your calluses. So this is Ask the Property Manager, and we're going to pull up a few agenda items here. The first thing we're going to be talking about is tracking down a past renter. So we got a question in the Facebook group recently at Rent Prep for Landlords from Janice, and she wanted to know how you find renters' new address when they skip out of town. So I know you've got some thoughts on this and different things you can do when you're trying to track down a renter. What do you suggest?
So you've got a few different options when you're trying to track down a tenant that, or a past tenant that probably owes you money, or you want to serve small claims paperwork to, or something like that. First thing you can do is mail an envelope to the last known address, which would be their apartment, with either return service requested or address service requested written on the envelope underneath where the stamp goes. If I remember correctly, address service requested will forward the item on to the person. And this is all assuming they put in a change of address request. If there was no change of address request, this is a dead end right off the bat. But if you put address service requested, it forwards it to the person, and then you get an item back in the mail saying, hey, just so you know, their new address is whatever.
And that's like a postcard or something you'll get?
Yeah, like a little postcard you'll get from the post office. And I think they actually send it cash due on delivery too, so you actually have to pay them for a stamp to do that, which is ridiculous. And then the other thing you could do is return service requested. And when you do it that way, it just sends the item back to you with a sticker on it, one of the yellow stickers with the new address. So depending on how you want to do it, you can either have it forwarded to them or you can have it returned to you. Either way, you're going to get the address forwarded or not.
Okay.
And again, that only works if they submitted change of address paperwork.
So do you have anything that you do, like any kind of extra caveats? Because I know you're always covering all your bases. Like, do you do anything else in case they don't have that forwarding address set up?
So there's a couple things you can do. First thing you're going to want to do is go back and pull your rental application. On the bottom of our rental application and in all of our leases, we actually have text basically stating that we reserve the right to run their credit checks before their tenancy, during their tenancy, and after their tenancy. And the reason we do that is specifically for reasons like this, where we need to pursue somebody after the fact. Usually a couple months after they move out, they're going to have updated an address on, a bank statement, a credit card, maybe applied for a new loan or something like that. It usually takes a couple of months before that hits the credit reporting databases, but you may be able to find their new address just by running a credit report on them after they've moved out of the building.
Okay.
The other thing you can do is, if you have the rental application, you may be able to serve them at work, or you may be able to contact an employer and try to get information that way. But I mean, it's when you start contacting employers after the tenants moved out, you kind of run into some rocky terrain. So I would be careful on that.
Sure.
But if you're trying to serve somebody and you know where they work, you can serve people at work. So that's definitely an option. And actually, the last thing I would be able to think of would be hiring a skip trace service or a PI firm to try to track down the tenant.
Do you know what your
costs are going to vary on that?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, costs are going to vary on that widely depending on who you contact and what services they offer, things like that. I've seen it as low as like $100. I've seen it as expensive as $1,000 if they really have to dig in and try to find something. Usually skip tracing is the cheapest way to go, and that usually runs between like $50 and $100.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad if you got a good bill that's due to you from a tenant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Before we move to the next question here, just to address Jen's question on the screen, she says, wish there was a way to put these all in one easy access list. I've been lazy about this, but what I'm going to do is we have units sections. If you're on our Facebook group, Rent Prep for Landlords, you can go on desktop, you can click on units, and there'll be a section with Ask a Property Manager. I believe there's already like 7 or 8 of these in there. And I'm going to pull in as many of these as I can there. Also on our Facebook page at Rent Prep, if you go to the video section, there's a list for these videos for Rent Prep for the Ask a Property Manager segments. So thanks for asking that, Jen. I appreciate it. All right. So question number 2. This is about security deposits and ESAs. So this question came in from Anthony, and he was asking about people who allow dogs because they had a tenant moving out this week, and her ESA tore up my lawn, and she left massive droppings in the yard. Do you charge out the security deposit for cleanup and reseeding?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So just because they have an emotional support animal, you obviously can't charge like a pet deposit on an emotional support animal or a service animal, but that doesn't exempt the tenant from being responsible for the damages that the pet may cause, or the animal may cause, not the pet.
Yeah.
And let's take a quick second and clarify. Emotional support animals are considered, and service animals are considered essentially a medical device at that point, not a pet. So when you're referring to them, refer to them as an animal. And if you have a lot of people have a pet agreement, change the word pet to animal agreement on your leases and stuff like that. That kind of covers your bases a little bit there too.
Yep.
Just because, if you get the right attorney, they may try to argue it, but it is what it is. Going back to the actual question, yes, you are still responsible for damages caused by the emotional support animal or the service animal during the tenancy and after the tenancy has ended. So like a torn up yard or something like that, absolutely that tenant is responsible. You should feel free to charge against the security deposit for whatever the costs are to remediate those damages.
Yeah, I think people get a little bit gun shy with emotional support animals and charging money because you don't want to do something that's going to get you in some hot water. But yeah, if you got an emotional support animal that's tore up the house, or there's damages, it's damages.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's a regular pet or a emotional support animal.
Yeah, and that's such a hot button issue in our industry right now too. Both the emotional support animals and the service animals. It's really started to turn into a situation where the legislation needs to be revisited in depth and really thought through, because it's
trending in that
just
direction.
Poorly written. Yeah, it is, which is nice. I see some states. Was it Washington? I think I sent you an article. Washington was getting ready to, or maybe it was Illinois or somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it really needs to be gone through because it's so poorly written that it. I mean, we've talked about the loopholes and things like that in the past, so it's good to see that they're finally redoing that legislation such that it, doesn't limit people from having the support that they need, but also helps to protect the landlord from situations like this where there's damages.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move to the next question we have here, and this one's on sending notices to tenants, and I should say sending proper notice to tenants. I've got some questions on this one too, and I'll read the comment here from Yvette. She said, my apartment association sponsored a seminar, and the lawyer speaking briefly mentioned mailing notices via certified mail. He said that if landlords send notices via certified mail, it could be considered improper service because the statute says first-class mail. So I presume the workaround is to send certified mail and snail mail. So walk me through, Andrew, take me through a couple scenarios of you sending a notice out to a tenant, why are you sending the notice, and then how do you go about doing it?
So I guess I'll start by saying I'm not an attorney. Consult your attorney.
Sure.
It's a good place to start. The way it was explained to me, and where I'm in New York, you're in New York. So this is my understanding of how it's supposed to work in New York. It may be different in your state. Definitely consult with your attorney. The way it was explained to me by my attorney is the more points of contact, the better off you are. So what he advised me to do was attempt the personal service. And we'll say this is a 3-day notice or a 30-day notice.
Okay.
Attempt the personal service.
Just for if somebody's confused, somebody's late on rent, you're serving them a 3-day notice of pay or quit in this instance?
Right.
Okay. So they have 3 days to pay or quit, or you're going to serve them an eviction. So this is just the first notice before any kind of eviction or anything like that.
Right, exactly. Yep. So what we'll do is we'll attempt to personally serve the tenant at their home or or at their place of work, depending on if we can get a hold of them that way. We'll attempt to serve the tenant personally. If we can't reach them personally, what we'll do is called nail and mail. So we post it on the front door of their unit, like the access door to their apartment. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of time and date stamp photos. It's probably the easiest way to protect yourself in so many sets of circumstances, whether it's posting a notice or doing a move-in or move-out inspection or what have you. It's probably the best way to go about taking photos is with a time and date stamp. What I do is I'll take a photo of the front of the building. I'll take a photo of the address numbers, so that shows I was here on this date and at this time. Mm-hmm. I'll take a photo of the notice posted on the door, and if there's a unit number on the door, I'll make sure that that's in the shot as well. And then I will, like, say it's the front door of a house, I will take another photo of the front of the house, clearly showing that the notice is posted. Yep. So don't, it's on your cell phone at this point. It's digital photos. Take as many as you need to be able to prove that you were there and posted the notice at what date and what time. Yep. From there, I go right to the post office. Let me back up. When you post and when you mail, you have to send it to every named party on the lease. So if you have a husband and a wife, the husband gets a letter, the wife gets a letter. And then in New York, you should also send one and post one to all other parties residing in the residence. So if you have 2 named people on the lease, you're sending 3 certified, 3 first class, which is just a normal stamp, and 3 posts on the door. Follow what I'm saying there?
Yeah. So with that third one, just covering if there's other people there.
If there's, John and Jane Doe, because you never really know who may or may not be living in the apartment. Okay. And actually, when you write your notices, you should include all other parties living in the apartment or in the home as well. Okay. Make sure that that's written so, John Doe, Jane Doe, and all other parties residing in the property known as 123 Main Street, Buffalo 14221, or whatever you want to use. Okay. And that's how we do it. So every party, every named party gets a certified plus all others. And then every party gets a first class, which is just a normal stamp, plus all others. And that's the way we've been taught to do it. We've never had a notice thrown out due to improper service based on using that instruction set. So, it's if you're going to cover yourself, you might as well go all the way. Sure. All right.
I guess if somebody's managing from out of town, that might be a little bit tougher. They might need somebody in town that could maybe serve the notice personally. Yeah, you may need a process server. Okay, cool. And how does that work? Have you ever used one of those services?
We have. We generally do the initial service for like the 3 or 30-day notice. We can do that right in our own office. Uh-huh. But once you actually file the petition to recover the property, and you have to serve the notice of the petition, that we always send to an outside service. So in the city of Buffalo, there's a city marshal service that you can pay to do that. Other places in Erie and Niagara County, we typically just use a process server. I think he charges us like $55 plus mileage, and they attempt the personal service, and then if they can't get it, they do the nail and mail as well.
Okay, cool. All right, I think that covers that, and we'll move on to the fourth and final question here today. And we're talking about a tenant applicant with an eviction. So somebody had posted in the Facebook group, said they had a prospective tenant with an eviction 6 years ago, and they also had bad credit due to a recent bankruptcy. I feel like I know what you're going to say here because you give me little notes. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts when you see something like that?
Based on the limited information available from that post, I would say no to that applicant. Yeah. It sounds to me like if they have an eviction from 6 years ago and they have a bankruptcy recently, it sounds like they have finance problems. Sure. Either they can't manage their money or something is going on. There's more than meets the eye here. Rather than make that your problem, just say no and move on to the next applicant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking this up because I don't want to. I'm just not good at remembering stuff off the top of my head, but it's also a good idea to kind of consider what type of bankruptcy it is, right? Because if you have a Chapter 7 versus a Chapter 13, I might have these backwards, but is it the 7 where somebody's actually attempted to repay some of it, and 13 they haven't? Or do I have that?
I think it's the other way around, but I honestly don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah. Chapter 13 is a reorganization bankruptcy designed for debtors with regular income who could pay back at least a portion of their debts through a repayment plan. So if you have money to qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you may have no choice but to file a Chapter 13. So if you're looking at somebody's information and they have a Chapter 13 bankruptcy on record, it means they at least have money or have attempted to pay back their debts. A Chapter 7 will just immediately tell you that this person just didn't pay anybody back and isn't planning on it.
Well, and that'll all be reflected in their credit and background check too. So when you see the credit report, it'll actually indicate that a particular debt was included in a bankruptcy proceeding. And I think it actually tells you in the comments on those, I think it actually tells you whether it was a 7 or a 13, if I remember correct. It's been a while since I've run one with a bankruptcy.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, also, I know I've brought this up before, but evictions, I mean, it's one of the most telling signs of somebody. If they have an eviction, they're almost 3 times more likely to be evicted again compared to somebody who does not have an eviction on record. So one thing that Steve and I have talked about is it's like going through a haunted house. The first time you go through, it's super scary. And
right.
I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures where it'll be like the picture they take at the end and everyone's like, ah.
Oh, yeah.
There's always like one jokester who knows it's coming and he's like kind of like going like this. And it's because that kid's been through the haunted house already and he knows this is when the camera's going to flash. So a tenant who's been through an eviction, like they're the one going through eviction court like this, like I got this, you know?
Yeah, because they've already been through the system. They know how it works. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
fear of unknown is gone.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of know what the lay of the land is. So I would say, you know, obviously not having all the information on that particular applicant, I would say chances are I would pass on them and move on to the next one. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, that does it for today. Thank you for being on here. And yeah, until next week, we'll, you know, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them in the group. We'll pick them up and look forward to answering those next week.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care, Andrew, and have a good week.